This podcast is not scripted or staged.
We're not sitting here wanting to see Kerala Blasters not succeed.
Is a football club a business?
To me personally, not affected at all.
Just from behind the scenes perspective, why the fan advisory?
And sometimes you cannot just snap your fingers and make everything right.
Don't be obsessed with trophies.
All people are free to express what they think and what they feel.
Moniker of Business FC floating around.
My name has changed online. I see people are referring to me now as Obsessed Chatterjee.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Yellow Wave podcast. I'm your host Aranyak aka Nando Footy, and today we have a special episode. We have two members of the management with us, Mr. Abhik Chatterjee and Karolis. Abhik, of course, is the CEO and Karolis is the sporting director at Kerala Blasters. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. How are you today?
Thank you so much.
Not too bad.
We'll see as the podcast goes on, obviously. Now, I'd just like to make the disclaimer that this podcast is not scripted or staged at all. When we started this podcast, the Yellow Wave podcast, we said that this would be a platform for the fans. I would be a bridge between the club and the fans, and that this would be your platform, your voice, to feel more connected to the club. This was not initiated by any of the management members or these two. We asked them whether they wanted to do this podcast and they agreed. So gentlemen, Abhik, maybe we could start with you. Could you tell us why you agreed to do this podcast, why you feel like this is maybe the right time to come out and speak? Because you've been a little quiet online. You were initially very active on social media, on X, and now maybe your first public appearance. Why are you feeling like it's the right time now?
I don't think there's ever a wrong time or the right time.
Right.
I feel that obviously for me, because I've joined the club recently, there's a lot of work to be done. And I feel that sometimes you need to let the work do the talking. And I think all of us at the club are very confident about what our intentions for the club are. I don't think anybody can challenge that, at least, because I can say all of us in this room want the best for Kerala Blasters Football Club, and all our actions are geared towards the outcome of that. So I believe we've been very busy, and that's the truth. There are so many things to be done. There have been many sleepless nights, and I can firsthand say that everybody is putting their weight behind making this club reach where it should, where the fans want it to be, where we want it to be. So, like I said, you guys asked, and I don't think there was any hesitation from our side to appear, and it felt right. So that's why we're here.
And you said that some things, you've had sleepless nights, many things have been in the works. Recently, the club has released a fan advisory board. Could you tell us what was the thinking behind that? How did you come up with this idea? The inspiration, of course, we've told the fans in the video what it is, but your thinking behind it, just from behind the scenes perspective, why the fan advisory board?
So I think it's a collective brainchild of the owners, the management. The intention is very simple. It is to give everybody, all the fans, a democratic process of interacting with us. Because what we realized is the interactions we are having, a lot of the communication that we have is scattered. And sometimes what we want to be represented, or the information that we want to put out, is maybe not reaching everybody. Maybe some things are taken out of context. A lot of it is lost in translation. So we wanted to make it streamlined. And the way to make it streamlined is to establish a process that is followed in some of the top leagues in the world, especially the Premier League, where every club has a fan advisory board. We've kept the application process simple. There will be a very fair selection process, and we are not averse to anybody applying for it, whether they are with a fan group, not with a fan group, an individual, anybody who feels they can make a difference to the club. They can ask us anything they want, and every minute of the meeting that we have will be published. It'll be there on a public domain for everybody to see. And we feel that this is the best way to communicate, because then, things are not lost in translation. Sometimes we're communicating across different forums, for example, we are communicating online. Sometimes we have a fan forum. Sometimes we are speaking to a fan group. Sometimes it's the season ticket holders. And mostly the questions are the same. And maybe the answers are not collated together and not reaching people in the way that it should. or people don't have access to it, sometimes. So we feel this is the best way to maintain a historical record of our conversations. And of course, that holds us accountable. If you see, the intention behind this is also to have, we are accountable for it, because at the end of the day, it's on pen and paper, it's online for everybody to see. Anybody can go back and say, okay, so you guys promised this, or you guys said you deliver on this and you haven't. So the intention is very pure. And also, we felt that this is something that will, I feel, increase the confidence that we have with the supporter base. Maybe it is not being understood now, but I'm sure going forward in the next few months, they will see the merit of it. And two, like I said, we wanted to open this to all the fans. We want any fan who follows, or a supporter who follows Kerala Blasters Football Club, feel that they have an opportunity to contribute.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you a follow-up question, which was, some fan groups, prominent fan groups maybe, or certain section of fans may feel, I don't want to say lack of a better term, maybe entitled, but some fans may feel sidelined or undermined because of their relationship with the club, because of the fan advisory board. So what are your thoughts on that?
This is not done with an intention to cut anybody out or to reduce their voices. It is just a manner which we feel is transparent, historical and streamlined. Our interactions with everybody will of course stay, I won't say the same, but there will be interactions, because it's not that we'll shut out interactions with everybody, but we just wanted to align ourselves and understand what is the official methodology of communicating with the fans. After that is established, everything else will revolve around it, everything else will supplement it. But we as a club needed to define what our communication strategy was going to be, because we felt that it was a bit all over the place, because all of us maybe, we feel an accountability to the fans, which is why we engage online, which is why we engage privately, maybe we engage in fan forums. But at the end of the day, it's maybe counterproductive, because what we want to communicate, or what the truth is, sometimes is not out there in the public domain. This we felt was going to be a rubber stamped process, and everything else, once you set the base, will be built on top of this.
And would you say this is different from how it's applied to other countries, because you've taken inspiration from European or other global models? How are you planning to tweak this for an Indian context, because it hasn't really been done before, or it's not really in practice, especially for such a passionate and emotionally reactive fan base?
I think we've of course increased the number of members than what is a usual count. We've also tried to make the process suit the Indian mentality. If you see the application process, we've given fans every chance to express themselves, to tell us why they feel they should be part of it. And we've, there is no selection criteria inside that application process that says, if you're part of X fan group, you can't apply, or if you're part of this demographic, you can't apply. It is the same for everybody. Everybody has an equal chance. The main criteria is that you should have the intention to make sure that you represent the sentiment of the fans fairly, and that you're able to put our communication or our answers or whatever we communicate to you in a fair way back to the fans. We want that entire medium to be very, very transparent. We don't want it to be selectively permeable, wherein some information goes, some information is held back. We want it to be completely transparent. So in that way, I feel for this market, and especially for the fans of Kerala Blasters, the supporters of Kerala Blasters, the best way I feel is transparency and honesty.
And the fans, of course, have been very vocal recently, we all know, and they've demanded a lot, especially from you too. So this is a double-edged question. First I'll ask is that, Karolis, we can start with you. How has this affected you? I'm not sure how much you have seen online, but the fans and what they're saying, both at a professional and personal level, how has this affected you? And then Abhik, we can go to you.
To me personally, not affected at all. When I'm online, I read some different things, not about football. So really not affecting at all. And I would be very bad in my job if I care about opinions, criticism and stuff like that. So it's complete zero of affection. We know what things we have to do. We know how we moving forward, and we follow the plan with some struggles at this moment. But fundamentally nothing changing. And and there are no affection at all.
So stick to the plan. Abhik, would you agree with that?
I believe that we are at this club to do a job, right? We are professionals who are put in place to do a job. That does not mean we don't care about what the fans want, but that means that if we do not focus on what we have to do and we sometimes are reactive, then we are changing what essentially has brought us to this place. I'm sure that is what he feels, because he has a philosophy which is in line with what the club wants. If he is reactive, that would change who he is, that would change his decision making process, and that would change what he believes in, which is not what we want. And sometimes you have to put faith in the subject matter experts in that domain to deliver what they're good at. And like I said in the beginning, you cannot question the intention. Nobody, I can speak for him, I can speak for us. We are not sitting here wanting to see Kerala Blasters not succeed.
Of course.
He wants to win. I'm here to win. We want to win with Kerala Blasters, right? So, we information is taken on board, but it usually does not govern how we think. If it is something that we agree with naturally, that sometimes an opinion comes to us which we already feel is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
we'll follow that track. But if we do believe in something very strongly, we are pursuing what we feel is the right thing to do.
There will be two perspectives on this. When we have to talk about a certain hashtag or campaigns that are going around, hashtag management out, hashtag United for Better Blasters. Now, you've addressed the question that you cannot bring emotions or affection when you're running a club. But would you say this is fair? Because, Karolis, you have been at the club longer than Abhik has. So you have been part of the management, maybe that was there in the summer, or that will come to that a little bit later in terms
Yes.
of sporting or transfer decisions. But you have been there longer. So what is your perspective on it from that side? And then Abhik will come to you because you came in halfway. So for you powerless really. There's not really any significant decision you could make except maybe parting ways with the coach, which has been done. And as of now, the club has won their last two games. They're on the up. So that was a positive change. So Karolis, we can come with you first. Your perspective on the hashtags and how you feel about that, and then Abhik, we can come to you.
Look, so everyone are free to express what, all people are free to express what they think and what they feel, and I understand how passionate fan groups are, and that's have positive part and from the man's perspective negative part, because it also actually puts big pressure and disappointment for players, for the team. But that's absolutely, I see this absolutely natural and normal, that fans demanding for something what they think right. So fundamentally in this I don't see nothing wrong, and obviously results is the thing which can change something, so we have to focus how to make it better as soon as possible, and we're doing certain actions to make it happen.
And Abhik, because I think this is more pertinent to you because you've come in halfway through the season after maybe significant decisions could be taken from a sporting transfer or a financial level. So would you say that it's maybe unfair to see these things, especially after how you've interacted with the fans when you first came in? Because I think I saw a tweet on maybe November 8th where you were spotted at a Tamil Thalaiva's game, and the fans were saying that we're proud to have owners and a board like this. Look at their passion. And then 20 days later, there were comments against you. So it's so like it's topsy-turvy that
Yeah.
way. So would you say that's unfair to you because you had to come in halfway?
No, I don't think that's unfair, because what you have to understand is, this is, see, there are two things to this, right? One, the fan base wants to win a trophy. Let's distill it down to what they want to do. And second, they want to be competitive every season. I think that's the crux of everything. And me coming in does not have anything to do with it, because of course the fans have been there since day one, right? So 11 seasons. Okay, so they want to see something. They want to see a trophy. They want to see us competing every season. So that's what they want to do. So I don't think it's unfair because I feel also sometimes you cannot expect everybody to think like how you do or how we do. That's why sometimes we have to take calls that subject us to criticism, which we are ready to. We're ready to be criticized. We know that we will be put into scrutiny. Of course, on a personal level, sometimes you do feel that, but then later you realize that this is the job that you've signed up for, and the job is to take Kerala Blasters to the top. Along the way, if there are bumps, people will point fingers at you. That's absolutely natural. I have accepted it. Like he said, he doesn't get affected. I must say, initially I was a bit affected, obviously, because for me, you sort of wonder why. But then you quickly realize that if you dwell too much on it, you will not be able to contribute in a positive manner. So, like you said, over the last month and a half, I've been focusing on trying to do what's right for the club, trying to put the noise behind, because we have a plan of action which we are confident about, and something which we always think not in the immediate term always. Some decisions are immediate term, but a lot of decisions are medium to long term as well, because we are responsible for securing the health of the club, the aspirations of the club, even medium to long term. So it's a mix of decisions. Sometimes you cannot just snap your fingers and make everything right, because it's not possible to, right? But what we are trying to lay are foundations that will benefit the club long term. And of course, we have an eye on short term aspirations as well. To say that we don't is incorrect. To say that we've given up is absolutely incorrect, because day in and day out, we're trying to see what can be achieved this season. So, I don't feel it's unfair. And to answer that bit of your question, and now we take it in our stride in a way.
So you would say that you've not been as interactive on social media recently, and so let's maybe make it clear that initially maybe that was because on a certain human level, but now it's because you don't want to be having this very scattered approach, but you want to have a very unified approach in how the top level is approaching and interacting with the fans.
Absolutely.
Now, there's also been this moniker of Business FC floating around. I'm sure you've seen it. Maybe there's some myths that we need to bust about, or maybe you would like to bust, because the perception is that a football club is a business. First of all, your opinion on that. Is a football club a business, or rather a better question would be, how much of a business is it, and balancing it with the sporting and emotional side of the game, because it's a sport that we all just love.
So two sides to it. One would be the sporting side, which I think Karolis will answer.
Yeah.
The other side to it is, yes, football is fundamentally a business. We are in the sport and entertainment business. Sport has this unique power of attaching sentiment and emotion to it, which is why lines are blurred often, which is why sometimes owners and sometimes fans do not recognize that at the end of the day, there is money put in, money taken out, and there is a balance sheet at the end of the day that needs to be looked at. Because of the support, and in this case with Kerala Blasters, which is a club that is uniquely supported and passionately followed, there will always be blurring of the lines. Now, I understand some of the criticism stems from the fact that they feel that this club is not intent on maybe spending enough to compete. That is something which I can rectify right away, because I can say this with good authority. We are in the top half of the teams in terms of competent spending. That's a fact.
Right.
Number two, when you speak about being business minded, Indian football is not at its zenith. It's a sport that needs a lot of work on to reach where maybe the rest of the world is. And it is right now in a phase I would like to say is transformative. In this phase, it is very important for the long-term health of the clubs in the Indian Super League and the I-League to be mindful of what they're doing. And when I say long-term health, that involves fundamental questions like clubs staying afloat, clubs running successfully, and clubs not going under, right? If you read between the lines. So if we are not mindful of it, sooner or later, there might be a stage where if we are reckless with what we do, it will affect the long-term health of the club. That is not to say we are only and solely focused on that. There has to be a balance between that and what we feel is rightful sporting aspiration.
Right.
So football is a sport where it's not just the players who make mistakes. We also make mistakes, right? There can be a decision that might be wrong. There can be a player that we think is good, may not be good. But it never meant that we brought in a player or we took a decision for the wrong reasons. The reasons are honest. So sometimes it takes time for something to fall in place, and Kerala Blasters is a club that's been in 3 finals and 2 of them are penalty shootouts. I always say this, it could have been so different. But that doesn't mean that we are very content with reaching 2 finals. We want a trophy on the table. But like I said, there has to be that balance between balancing the long-term health of the club and also ensuring that we are competing consistently.
Right. Karolis, how would you say, bringing the sporting side to you, how are we balancing sporting success with financial sustainability? And is there something you would like to tell the fans in terms of making certain perceptions clearer from a sporting perspective?
I like the term a lot, a healthy football club, a healthy functioning football club. And this is what we have to care. I remember not once I spoke about this with when we had a meeting with season ticket holders, that it's one of the key things. So it has to be balanced everywhere. Like I cannot say better than Abhik just did about that, even about sporting side, because there has to be balance. There has to be balance, and you have to think what is it makes sense in short term and long term, and obviously naturally and without any doubt, it's targets to have short term success, long term success, titles and everything what every club wants, and we surely capable to do with our resources to achieve that. And so focus is on all of this, in short term success, long term success, and so it's like that.
And Abhik, just coming back to you, you said that the club have been in number of penalty shootouts and those could go either way. In a recent interview, you mentioned, and I'd like you to clarify exactly what you said about don't be obsessed with trophies.
Yeah.
Could you just clarify what exactly you meant by that, and let's just lay it out on the table now,
Yeah.
because I think maybe that has been heavily taken out of context and many things have been said about you. Let's talk about that. What exactly did you mean by that? Could you give us some context and what you meant and your intention behind that as a CEO?
My name has changed online. I see people are referring to me now as Obsessed Chatterjee. So it's yeah, I've seen that take root in the last month. But I do believe it was taken out of context, because if you actually go back and read what I said, is for the people working at the club, this is after I've come in, what I would like them to focus on are the steps and the path that will lead us to win trophies. If you are obsessed with saying, why are we not winning? Why are we not winning? Why have we not won yet? Perhaps we are overlooking what needs to be put in place or the things that need to be done to make us a top team. So what I said was for the club and the employees and the people working, not for the fan base and the aspirations. I can say this for myself. I'm very, very competitive. I hate losing. That's a fact. Nobody has come here to have a vacation. The reason why we are here is the allure of bringing the first trophy to Kerala Blasters, because we know what it means to this club and what a momentous occasion it will be. So what we are trying to do as a club, in my capacity, I can speak for myself, is to make sure that we function better as a unit off the pitch, so that he has the resources on the pitch. Together that will contribute us to winning a trophy, because I strongly believe it's not just the players who bring the trophy home. It's a cumulative effort of everybody, the media team, the sponsorship team, the marketing team, admin staff, the academy, everybody has a part to play. Somehow I feel cumulative energies add up when a team wins something, right? And if we become obsessed, what I meant was, if we become obsessed is why haven't we won? We will maybe forget the things that we need to do to get there, right? I never said our aspiration should not be to win. So I do feel that was taken out of context. But of course, in the position that we are, every statement that we make will be subject to scrutiny. So I don't feel bad. I found it amusing also at times. But this is what I meant, when I said we as a club should focus on what we need to do to get there rather than wondering about why we haven't got there yet.
Right. So you would say, would it be accurate to say that let's not force the issue for the sake of forcing it, but rather have from top to bottom a very thought out methodical approach structurally at the club, all the way from not just from the starting 11 but all the way down to the roots of the club, to make sure that we create an ecosystem and an environment at the club which is built for success?
Everybody needs to feel they have a part to play in us winning. And everybody needs to go back to the drawing board and think, what can we do better? How can we improve? How do we improve the standards of this football club so that other clubs look up to us and say this is a standard that we should follow, or this is what Kerala Blasters is doing. They're breaking ground in terms of what a football club can do. This is something that we are looking up to. That's what I want coming from each and everybody, because the sum of all of that will put us where we want to be to achieve sporting success.
And Abhik, you mentioned the allure of the club, of Kerala Blasters Football Club. Karolis, I want to ask you, the fans have been asking, and obviously everyone must be wondering, we're almost halfway through the winter transfer window now, and there have been a lack of signings. Straight up, why is that?
Why? Of course. This January window surely will be signings. We always want things as early as possible, but it's not only us deciding. Players has to accept. Some clubs maybe has to release them. So it's not only up to us. So surely it will be some changes. More, of course, still this more window, I see it more for cleaning and fixing unhealthy parts, let's say, than adding new. But we definitely will have newcomers who will, I'm sure, will help the team this season and in the future. Because any signings also now we looking also with perspective of long term as well.
And Abhik, you mentioned that from both perspectives, maybe on and off the pitch, how you want to create a strong foundation, let's say maybe in this window or in the short to medium term perspective. What are your opinions on people saying that the board or the management is hiring people from outside the state or outside? There's a lot of a regional aspect to it maybe. Would you say that, it doesn't matter where you're from, if you're good enough, if you're talented enough, if you're competent enough, if you're a good human being, you can work and you can contribute towards the success of the club?
Yeah, obviously that is there, and if we have to put down hard facts, the ratio of regional employees to outside employees is skewed heavily in the favor of regional employees, right? Most of our staff is from the state. I think the intention is never to bring people in from outside. The intention is to get whoever they feel are best equipped and aligned with their vision and objectives to execute on their behalf. So that I feel is not at all true, and I feel nobody, to be very honest, in Indian football thinks that way, because on the contrary, I think every owner of a club would want their regional talent base to be strong, because for them at the end of the day, it makes much more sense to have somebody who speaks the language, to have somebody who knows the state, who represents the sentiments well, right? So it's never something which they think of on the other way around, but they have, obviously they would want to bring in people who align with their perspectives, and it's completely their call to take, and I'm sure they have their reasons for doing it, but it's never with the intention to create a segregation at all.
Many people claim that the club has become a stepping stone club, or a selling club maybe.
Every penny that the club makes from this is reinvested back into the club to make the club healthier and stronger.
Usually time show it was right or wrong.
Today I'm here, tomorrow I'll not be there. But the club will be there.
and sometimes it looks, some decisions may be weird decisions, to let someone go or something like that.
All the supporters of this club want us to win and want us to win every game and want us to win the league.
Expectations are high. It's supposed to be high. Also we are better than this. So now we should regroup and show that and prove that.
The club is above us all. We are here for the club.